Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you again. I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time. So today I wanted to address something that I feel is very important for our practice. And at the same time, it's not addressed so much in the meditation circles, which is about emotions, feelings and emotions. And in particular, what in psychology now they call shadow emotions or dark emotions or negative emotions, which are a very important doorway to understand. Now, all this terminology, we have to, first of all, make it clear. They're not negative emotions in the sense that they're negative. They're negative emotions because we judge them as negative. And so they're not dark or shadow emotions because they are actually dark, but because we keep them in the darkness, in the shadow, in the basement, in the subconscious, because we judge them as negative. Yeah. So there is not such a thing as a negative emotion, but the interpretation that we give to them, that's what makes them negative. It makes them something that is not accessible so easily because it's not accepted, yeah, by ourselves and by the society at large. We could say that we live in a emotion-phobic society, and particularly for those shadow emotions, yeah. So it's important to understand that unless we integrate the whole gamut, the whole range of our feelings, we will always remain fragmented. Yeah. So what are these shadow emotions? Well, there are many. There are many, and we have sadness, we have jealousy, we have grief, we have anger, we have confusion, depression, desire, and so on and so forth. All those feelings that we, not only the society, but ourselves, especially our spiritual ego, so easily interprets and judges as not spiritual enough. Come on, after all this time that I've been meditating, I shouldn't feel jealous. I shouldn't feel anger. I shouldn't feel fear. I shouldn't feel hatred, right? All this should. So not only this, the social environment is criticizing and judging these emotions, but ourselves, and particularly our spiritual ego, is put them in the negative, bad emotions box. Okay. So they need to be integrated. Not only that, but they are an amazing, as I was saying, a portal, an amazing opportunity if they are allowed and felt to create an alchemy. I call it the alchemy of the dark emotions. What alchemy? Well, alchemy, the stereotype of the alchemist is the one that is, or his goal was to transform base and metal into gold. No, there's this symbology. Well, that's what alchemy means with emotions. We can transform a base emotion, like anger or grief or whatever it is, into gold. So every emotions, even the base shadow emotions, are a portal to something higher and luminous and bigger. Let's call it gold. And that's why it's an alchemy. But this alchemy, it's not possible unless we know how to perceive and accept and integrate these emotions. There's no possible transformation unless there is full acceptance of anything that arises within us. So, of course, we talked about choiceless awareness and that mindful attention that we bring to anything we observe that should not carry any judgment. We know that even for thoughts, we said that many times. We start judging a thought as bad or negative, you're actually hooking onto it instead of being able to release it. So non-judgment is really the key to be able to create a flow, where things come, but they also go. Rather than coming and we judge them and we stick to us, we watch without carrying any judgment. And if we do carry judgment, we become aware of it mindfully and we release the judgment. So emotions are a little bit easier for women to feel because man had a much stronger repressive conditioning where, come on, don't be a girl, oh, why are you crying? Don't be a sissy. You shouldn't feel so much, be strong. Also, Dutch people are like that. Come on, you have to push through, you have to be strong. Don't be a sissy. I know a lot of Dutch people that come to Mandali, they come in burnout. They are burned out because of that, because it's like, you have to push through, you have to be strong. So they don't allow themselves to feel how tired or stressed they are until they are burned out. So for men, it's a little bit like that with emotions, but women have their own problems with emotions too, because even though they are more in touch with them, because they have not been conditioned by society so strongly of not to feel, so they are more able to feel. But at the same time, they have also a strong judgment on what they feel. So, so maybe they can get in touch with a certain sadness or pain. Maybe it's easier for them to get in touch with that, and it's easier for them to shed tears to express that. But then they might have a judgment that, oh, I shouldn't cry, particularly not in front of everybody, because then they judge me as weak. right? Because that is the general idea and conditioning that society carries. So even if you are as a woman, you're able to get more easily get in touch with your emotions, to express them, in particular in public or even with friends sometimes, it's difficult because there is an overlaid judgment that, well, if I show I'm crying now, I look weak, particularly if I'm at work, God forbid. Yeah. So how to feel and process these shadow emotions? What is the process that allows for this important alchemy of integration? Well, the first step, obviously, and we're talking within the mindfulness realm. Yeah, of course, we need to, mindfulness is the main tool we're using in meditation. Yeah. So being mindful means we are able, more and more, the more mindful we become, the more we're able to notice what is arising, what we feel, what is happening in the inner space, let's call it, of consciousness. So there might be thoughts that are a little more visible and accessible. But after that, a more subtle layer is mood, emotions, feelings. So the first thing is to become aware that you're feeling something. So the first step, number one step, is noticing. Noticing that, let's take sadness. Noticing that you're sad. Emotions are good because they are so connected to the body, to the physical body, so they are perceived and they express themselves through the physical body, unlike thoughts. So definitely one key is to tune into what we feel, not only on an emotional level, but also on the physical level. Feeling means, well, in English, it describes both, right? You can feel something on an emotional level, but you can also feel something on a physical level. That's perfect in this case, because what we feel on an emotional level, we're going to feel it on a physical level too. That's the nature of emotions. So that's the key, to first feel, so noticing, oh, there is some, maybe you cannot define it right away as sadness, but you have a feeling in your heart, in your chest, let's say. And so you notice that, right? Because you're mindful of anything that you feel. And so you tune into that. And you try to feel, what is this feeling I have? Something heavy in my heart today, So you sit with that, you bring mindfulness, you bring all your focused attention to that sensation of, let's call it weight or a contraction, whatever it is. It can be anything, but just to make an example. So you go and you bring all your attention, what is this feeling of heaviness? So you penetrate, you let yourself feel that sensation until it becomes more clear what it is. So maybe we continue with that process and you go like, oh yeah, God, I feel sad actually. And maybe the mind says, well, you have no reason to feel sad. You go, okay, put the mind aside. This is not your space, This is about mindfulness, not about mind. So you say, no, it doesn't matter if there's no reason to be sad. Let me feel it. It's sadness. Mhm. So the first step is noticing the sensation and being able to, what's the right word? Individuate, recognize what emotion is, and name it as accurately as possible. In this case, in our example, it's sadness. Yeah. So I feel it and I go like, oh yeah, it's sadness. I feel sad. Good. This is the first step. So feeling, noticing the sensation, enter into it, recognize the emotion, the feeling, name it, define it as accurately as possible. Yeah. You cannot be like, oh, I feel bad. Well, that's way too generic. Feel bad. What does it mean? Do you feel grief? Do you feel sadness? Do you feel anger? Do you feel hopeless? What do you feel? That bad would be like, it would include almost everything, all the shadow emotions, right? No, we need to name it as exactly as possible. Okay. Define it. Okay. So sadness. Then once we have defined it and we are tuned into that and we know what it is, the second step is befriending that. So to befriend the emotions, what does it mean? Well, first of all, we need to release any judgment we carry on that. Yeah. So if I carry judgment that, well, you shouldn't be sad, there's no reason to be sad. You have so many things happen today or whatever. That's already a judgment. I'm not befriending that emotions. Befriending means I'm accepting it no matter what. And I don't overlay any judgment. Yeah. Or the judgment can be simply by the societal conditioning that we received. Yeah. Some cultures have much stronger condemnations on certain emotions. Like if you live in the United States or you go there, you know very well that anything that is like sadness is like, no, everything has to be nice, happy, positive, easygoing. Hey, how are you? Good, fine. That's a typical way to greet each other. It's how are you? Fine. That's automatic, right? So the first time I went to the States, I was with my partner that was American, and I was like, I didn't know this. It was the first time. And everybody on the street were telling me, hey, how are you? And I was like, ask her, but I don't know this person. Why they're asking me, how am I? And she was like, no, it's the way of greetings. I was like, okay. But still in the beginning, I even started answering. So maybe a cashier at the supermarket would say, hey, how are you? And I was like, well, this morning, actually, I woke up, I was not feeling so well, And these people were like starting to look at me with big eyes, like freaking out because I was actually answering the question. But they don't want to know how you are. And especially, they don't want to know that you're not feeling fine. Yeah. So there's an incredible overlaid conditioning on, God forbid you start crying. Everything is fine. Everything is happy. Everything is good. Everything is uplifting. It has to be. Yeah. So befriending, that's the second step. Befriending means you allow yourself to feel it without putting any barrier through your not accepting it or your judgment of it. And then the third step is surrendering to that. So surrendering means you allow the emotional flow, the emotional energy, the emotional expression to flow through your whole body, you allow yourself to circulate, to be, to expand. You let go, you surrender to it. Yeah. Which is possible only the third step if you have done the first two, of course. First, you need to notice it. Then you have to recognize it for what it is, acknowledge it, define it. Then you have to befriend it. So you have to release all judgment. And third, you can let go and surrender to it and just dive into it, let's say, or let that emotion take the space, inner space, but always with mindfulness. So it's not a surrender like you become completely passive and you get completely washed away and taken by this emotion. With mindfulness means you allow it, you recognize it, you let it be, you do not judge it. You surrender, so you release any resistance to feel that, but still you're very mindful and very present. So you don't get carried away or washed away by that emotions. Yeah. So if it's sadness, you will not get sucked into a deep depression because you're mindful of that sadness. If it's anger, it means you will not get pushed into punching somebody on their face or killing someone. Yeah, because that emotion is taking you over because you are mindful. So you cannot, because there is mindfulness, you cannot go to those extremes. Those extremes happen because people didn't have enough mindfulness and awareness of what they were feeling and the process that these shared emotions were starting within themselves. If the shared emotion is repressed, then, and there is no awareness, no mindfulness, then that's where it goes to extremes, where people become violent. Well, they become violent because they haven't recognized their anger in the first place. They haven't had that ability to bring mindfulness to that emotion. Yeah. So there's nothing to be afraid. Any emotions can be felt in its totality, and knowing that we do it with mindfulness, so it cannot bring any negative result. On the contrary, it will open deeper and deeper understanding on many things, including this very structure of our egoic self. Yeah, because many of these emotions are simply an expression of that egoic self or the small self. So if I feel jealous and I go into it deeply, I might discover certain things. For example, I might be able to realize, oh, I'm jealous because somehow my little self think that that person belongs to me, it's mine. And you might notice that, oh, I want it to be mine because actually I have an emotional hole inside that needs to be filled. And I can only feel it if I feel this person can feel it. So if that person goes away, I'm again left with a big hole inside. And that's terrifying. you might see a lot of the layers that are behind an emotion. Yeah. And that is the amazing alchemy that then through that mindfulness that you bring, for example, to jealousy in this case, it might release. That jealousy will go through its alchemical transformation where suddenly you're able to see at the bottom of it and it will turn into something else. For example, to just love, to realize, oh, it allows you to experience what love without an attachment, without a need, and without a desire is, which is a completely different form of love. And you will find yourself experiencing that pure love out of the complete integration of a basic shadow emotion like jealousy can be, for example. And that goes for all the emotions. So this is a simple, in simple terms, a way to make use of the alchemy of negative emotions that are they're not negative at all. Another tool we can use, I didn't mention, is the breath. So when we are mindfully breathing, we become mindful of the breath. Oftentimes we are able, just through that simple becoming aware of the breathing, we become aware of physical sensations more easily. Or maybe you're already very present and you don't need to use the breath, but the breath is still useful to, or for some people to feel that original compression in the chest, for example. If you're lost in thoughts and your stories and whatever, it's not easy to perceive the subtleness of that sensation. But if you tune into the breathing and you relax your breath, you become more sensitive to everything, including to physical sensation. So you notice not only the breath, but it's like, but there's a compression in my chest that doesn't let me breathe fully here, for example, right? Then you can use the breath to bring the breath in that point, and you start breathing in that point where you feel there is a contraction, for example. So the breath can be used in that way too. It can be a useful tool if you need it. For people that are very in touch with their emotions and maybe they don't even need to use the breathing. They can just go straight in and feel it and let it unfold and let it befriend it and let go into it and surrender to it. But if you can't do that, or you have difficulties, then use the breath. It's a very good tool for many things. And of course, it's one of our anchors that we worked on that will help us stay present. Also, when the mind is very active and you feel constantly like washed away by thoughts, breath is a wonderful anchor to come back to the present moment, stay with the breathing until the mind calms down. Okay, this is pretty much what I wanted to share with you. And if anybody has questions or something to share, we can do that after the sitting. Yeah? Let's sit together a little bit. Find a comfortable position. When you're ready, close your eyes and start bringing your attention inward. And as always, we start from feeling the body and quickly scan through the body to see if there is any area that can be relaxed a little more. Not forgetting, or maybe starting from something we tend to forget, which is the muscles around the face. It can be a good starting point. Just relax your forehead and muscle around the eyes and cheeks and jaws and around your mouth. Just let your face and your whole head actually relax. And you might feel a faint beginning of a faint smile appearing. That is okay too. Maybe not physically, but just by relaxing the face, you might feel that tendency to inside smile. And then follow through shoulders and neck. Also tend to gather tensions there. If you can relax your shoulders and neck properly. And then the upper back and lower back. Make sure the sacrum area is relaxed. We often carry a lot of holding there. Let the sacrum sink into the cushion, into the pillow, into the floor. Start to perceive the weight of the body as a way to relax into it. So let your sacrum and the pelvis and the pelvic area and the belly relax and sink down. Into whatever you're sitting on. Keep allowing your sensation of sinking, falling downwards, connecting with earth energy as a way to let go of everything. In this moment, you can let go of everything because you're here just for yourself. There's nothing else to achieve, nowhere to go, but completely embodying this moment and that place where you are by grounding yourself in that place and relaxing into it. You might start feeling like you're a mountain or a big tree with deep roots. Unmovable and rooted into that place where you are. And the top of that tree or the top of the mountain is the top of your head. Start sensing an uplifting, very subtle energy from the sky. As if there is a thread attached to your crown, slightly holding you up. Let your neck and spine align with the help of that uplift energy. Feel as you are sustained upwards as well as rooted and grounded downwards at the same time. Then move your attention towards the inner space that is between these two energies. Perceive that spaciousness in which you observe anything that arises within your consciousness, anything that you are aware of. You might notice the movement of your breath. As if floating in that inner space. Notice if the breathing is relaxed or not. Notice if your diaphragm and your belly are relaxed, and if they move with the in-breath and the out-breath. Allow the breathing to relax and slow down and deepen by itself, just by staying with it, by bringing your awareness there, by befriending that breathing cycle. Noticing how when we are in touch with the breath, we are naturally feeling very present. And at the same time, we are aware of anything else that arises within the inner space. Might be body sensations, perception through the senses of the outer world, maybe sounds, maybe silence. And we also become aware of any thoughts that might arise, exist for a few moments, and then disappear as we become aware of it. Let all this happen as a flow without any effort, because awareness and presence does not require any effort. It's a natural quality of your being. You just observe. And allow everything to flow and change. Observe how the present moment is always changing, even though in a very, very subtle way sometimes. It's a natural flow. The only thing that does not change is your witnessing presence, the observer. That you can consider that as your center, unchanging center, around which everything else revolves, spins around, moves through that screen of consciousness and changes. All experiences are impermanent and ever-changing. Only your center is permanent. That's why we call it the center. Like a center of the cyclone that is still unchanging, unmoving, while everything else around is moving and transforming, changing. So you can perceive that unmoving center, that in which resides that witnessing presence. You can feel that as your unchanging center of your being. that is always present, even when we're not aware of it, because we get carried away by experiences. Still, it's still there. And you can go back to it anytime you remember, again and again. So that coming back becomes more and more spontaneous, more and more natural. And you start feeling more and more at home when you are in that center. Keep observing and allowing. Allowing what is to be felt. Whatever it is. And slowly coming back to the group. And we open the space to, if anybody wants to share something, either about what we talked about before or about your meditation today or about your life. Anything. Anything. So 2 people. Was that Aura first, then Rafaela? Let's see if I can unmute you or unmute yourself.
Hey.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So, a lot of crap happened in the past few weeks, and it was so, like, you said that some people have, there was a lot of emotional turmoil, but I was going on like, no, be strong, don't give in, don't give in. And I was also taking care of some animals and everything, so I was holding everything together. And one fine morning, my right hand completely like gave up. It became numb. In just some regular stretching, it just became completely numb. And it's like been a month and it's still numb. Even hot cold sensation and knife point, I can feel nothing in my. I was not able to play violin for long, not able to grip. And then I was in this shifting and moving on, and I got an emergency. Like I had to come to Ahmedabad in 24 hours time. So all the packing and everything, and I caught a fever. I took a PCR test with 100 fever,
Aura,
and
keep the mic a slightly more away.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Better?
Perfect.
Okay, maybe.
No, it was
So
good, but we could hear a lot of your breath blowing on the
okay.
mic. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I took a PCR test with 100 fever, and luckily it turned out to be negative. And then I caught like my fever went rising like 1 and everything, and I traveled with that thing somehow taking paracetamol, and then I come and my B12 levels are completely like down. Now I have to take like injections of B12, and so yeah, so a lot of things happen if you just keep going strong and ignore everything that's happening and keep putting up a smile and keep going on, It was
Yes.
yeah. And I was so down, like in 2 years is the first time I got a fever. It went around 1 and 2, and for 1 week completely I would read, even if I would read paracetamol, I would take cefixime and stuff, I would be completely out and dizzy. Even
Mm-hmm.
one moment of meditation I would fall asleep, just, and all my limbs would get numb. So yeah,
Yeah.
and now I'm on steroids for my hand thing. Let's see if it works. Nothing works anymore. So yeah. And then yesterday I put on in the night I do this self-hypnosis thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time in all these weeks, and in that you kind of relax uh, like your chakra part by part. So for the first time, I could really let go of the distress in the heart, because she said just for what's not necessary for this moment, and it really touched, and I could really let go, and I relaxed so deep after a long, long time. Yeah, so it was very nice. And at home, and I have been crying a lot for no reason, just like that, and it feels, yeah, good and relieving actually. A lot
Yeah.
of relaxing, and yeah.
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 Yes. Wow. quite a quite a tornado.
Quite a tornado.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That is exactly what happens when we don't when, as you said, when we start ignoring things. And as we were saying, emotions and feelings are, they make sure they make themselves felt. And if you still don't feel them because you keep pushing them away, something gets stronger, you know? So we're somatizing. That means we turn an emotions into a body problem. Yeah. And then if you don't attend to that, then another problem comes on top of that, and so on and so forth, right? That's how stress is built. And that's how emotional stress also is built, and then physical stress as well. Mm-hmm. So the key is to, if possible, of course, be mindful to whatever arises when it arises so that we can attend to it without it building up, going, either get pushed into the subconscious and then they will keep affecting your life without you even being aware of it, or becoming somatized to an illness in the body. Yeah. So now they have Kirlian photography, which is very interesting because it allows you to see the aura, the energy body, as well as a physical body. So they notice that sometimes big illnesses in a certain part of the body, they actually see when something happens physically. They notice when they take pictures throughout, let's say 1 year, they keep taking picture of your energy body. They notice that 6 months before that illness appeared, you showed it in your energy body already. So suppose somebody has a tumor or somebody has a kidney failure or whatever big, or a heart failure. 6 months before, many times, it was showing in the aura, in the energy body already. There was something there that was congested, a hole. And 6 months later, it got somatized and expressed through sometimes a serious illness, sometimes less serious, but it doesn't matter. So that's definitely, even scientifically now, they're realizing, oh, yeah, a lot of the physical problems are connected to our energy body. So if we can catch them as they arise before they get somatized or before they get pushed back into the subconscious, that's ideal. But if we wait too long, like it happened to you, then of course it's never too late. Yeah. And remember the old saying, no pain, no gain. Yeah. So sometimes, unless you allow yourself to feel a certain pain, certain grief, or a certain painful emotions, or whatever that is, you will not gain anything. You will just lose. So allowing yourself to, like we were talking about before, to acknowledge, befriend, and let go into that, you know, surrender to it, let yourself feel it, and see with mindfulness so that you can see what lies underneath, if possible, you know. Sometimes it's just something that needs to be simply emotionally felt and then it's gone, but sometimes it has deep roots into something that needs to be seen. Yeah. So of course, my suggestion for you is go back to that, you know, just relax, do your meditations, relax and tune into what you feel in the body, and then tune into any little or big sensations you might feel. It might be very obvious, you know.
Yeah, my biggest fear is like when I start crying, for me it's kind of impossible to stop or get hold of myself and go like, come on, now it's okay, it's enough, it's you're relieved, but just stop,
Yes.
It just keeps going on, and then I don't want to go into it again and again, because it's
Yes.
like,
Well, sometimes that happens when we waited too long. And then there is like a build up. And then, let's say, if there was a grief that has not been processed properly, then it gets somatized into a depression, which is an extreme. Yeah. If we allow ourselves to feel the pain, we don't get depressed. Eventually, we come out the other side. But if we don't allow it, we get into a depression, and then it takes more work to get out. So then, maybe you start crying and you can't stop, and it's going on and on and on and on, because you reach already a point that is a little bit into the depression mode. Yeah. So it's fine. It's fine. You just be aware of what is happening, which you seem to be, and bring mindfulness every day to this inner state you're in. Address any feeling that arises. So you shed your tears, that's a good thing, but it can also become a distraction, as you said, so it's good to have big cries and release, but then use mindfulness to actually not get carried away and washed away only by a river of tears, but also to get in touch with that feeling underneath, because you want to go to the core, to the roots of that. So it takes work, but it's very worthwhile doing it. And I'm sure your right hand will come back to life also once you've done that process.
now is this area. Oh, so it's
Yeah, just energy congestion, that's all.
yeah.
You don't need medicine, you need to go in. Meditation and medicine have the same roots, because meditation heals. So I'll suggest take the meditation pill. That's the best one, because I know it's all rooted in your psychological turmoil. So that what needs to be addressed, not the physical symptoms, but your feelings underneath. You know that, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, and keep me up to date.
Yeah.
How it goes. Yeah. Or write to me in private if you need help with anything. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Rafa, you wanted to say something?
Yes, that were uh, some difficult weeks because it's happening a lot in my private life, and there are problems in the life of someone I love, and I have to learn to put this down. And my son is now working in Amsterdam in a fantastic restaurant, and is burning. He's loving it, and we were visiting him, and it was really great to see how he's flourishing, how Spanish is getting a real. So it was.
He works in Spain?
No, in Amsterdam.
Oh, in Amsterdam.
In a 2 stars restaurant, and is experimenting, and and it was something like tirocinio
Training.
Training, and now is get really a job, and is earning good money, and very, very quickly everything, and is so flourishing and beneficial, special. And it was great for me. But I was feeling pain, and I was meditating, and I was okay, I'm feeling alone. That's the lonely little Rafa, and that's all my old aloneness. But it was still a little bit pain, especially thinking mi ha sorpassata.
He surpassed you. Yeah, he
Yeah,
passed you. Yeah, he
it
surpassed you.
passed me. And I'm not jealous, but what is this pain? And at the end of meditation, I was feeling I don't have anything anymore that I give him. I
That
was
you?
giving that I can give him. I
Aha,
was
that you
giving
can.
my passion, my being crazy, my energies, my
Yeah,
support, my mom, and I don't have anything anymore that I can give him.
yeah.
Oh, and I'm feeling little. I don't know. No, what I'm feeling is changes something, and I wonder if being mad a bit means to give something. I don't think so, but I don't know. What do
Yes.
you think?
Well, there's a big emptiness, isn't it? Yeah. So it was filling your life. His presence was filling your life. It was giving you also reason to be, to exist, and because you could share and you could give a lot to him and you could share. And now it's like, wow, what is Rafa without a son, without being a mother, and without having this identity that is the one that shares all the things, that is just expressing herself and giving. And so it's a big redefining who you are in this moment. And of course, to get to that, sometimes we have also to go through grief, the pain of being left behind, as you said, being surpassed, being left behind, being alone again, and finding different ways maybe to share yourself.
Mm.
You have to, recreate in a way, find a way to bring meaning and balance to your life that you feel good with it. So it might be starting a completely different thing, a new adventure that you never even thought of. Who knows? But first let yourself feel the grief, the pain, the loneliness, whatever wants to be felt. It's a little bit like when somebody dies, If we don't allow ourselves to grieve, we will never surpass that point. We will remain depressed. When there are old cultures like tribal cultures, they have a very specific time when somebody dies. You just grieve. You just take the time to feel that sorrow, that pain. And unfortunately, in our modern society, there's a tendency, oh, come on, move on, just be positive. Look at the positive side of life. You don't need to go into that depression, in that sadness, but it's very needed instead. Otherwise, we're trying again to cover it up. So first, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. And then out of that, I think the alchemy will happen, that suddenly it will be, first you go through a deep night, and then eventually it's a sunrise again, and then there's a new morning, and then your being will tell you will suggest, will tell you, will give you inspiration. Oh, why don't you try? Maybe you could go and do this now, or maybe you will feel something new coming. That's the alchemy of what we were talking about. So maybe as not, you haven't allowed yourself to feel that enough, and going into it deeply with mindfulness, and not like getting lost in sorrow, but with mindfulness. And let yourself feel it and surrender to it enough that it becomes a flow. It flows through you. It doesn't get blocked anywhere. And transform itself, you will see. If you allow it to flow, it will transform itself. Eventually. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Rafa. Yeah, those are strong moments every mother goes through. The ecstasy of the birth and the grief of letting go. They come in one package. Yeah. And rediscovering who you are when you're not a mother. Of course, you will always be a mother, but in that role, it's such a strong role. And now life is telling you, what are you if you don't identify with that role, with that story of being a mother? Truly, who you are underneath that. That also will come slowly, slowly through that alchemy. We tend to get identified. I'm not talking about you in particular now, but we tend to identify with a certain aspect of our egoic self. Like for some people, for example, they feel so much unworthiness, like they're not worth much, and like a big empty, a negative empty space inside, like they have no value. For example, I'm just making an example. And then they act out that by becoming people that give a lot. They become very helpful. They want to help others. They feel like all I want to do is help others, which seems like a beautiful thing, right? But without mindfulness of what's underneath, they get lost. And so they get identified into being helpful people, maybe you're a nurse, or maybe you're a missionary, or whatever, or a teacher. It can be anything. And they get so identified with that because when they give a lot to people, they don't feel their own emptiness. They don't feel their own lack of self-worth. Yeah. So they get completely identified with that, ignoring the root. There is something that has not been addressed. Yeah. So they spend their whole life giving, and they don't feel what's hiding underneath. And then something happened that maybe they cannot give anymore. And then there is a big depression because, of course, you're thrown back to yourself, to the original problem that was your self-worth. Yeah, you have to learn to love yourself before you love others. But they were trying to love others so they wouldn't feel the lack of love for themselves. That happens to all the missionaries and nuns and priests and teachers and doctors and nurses and all the people that social helpers, a lot of people have that you go like, wow, they're so good, they're giving so much, how beautiful. Yes, beautiful, but what's underneath? Are they integrated? Are they whole in their being, or they're just compensating for a hole that they carry inside. Yeah. So being a mother can be also like that a little bit. You know, you have your role, you have something to give, you take care of somebody, you feel good, but who is Rafa underneath that has been put aside and covered by this new role? You know, when you gave birth, you became a mother, and then for 20 years, your life was filled by that. And now life is telling you, okay, now you go back to yourself. Yeah, can you step out of that role, let it go? And first, as we said, you have to process what you need to process emotionally. That's very important. That's first step. But then also rediscover, okay, who am I when I'm not in that role of mother? Mm-hmm. And that will happen. You will, once you process also the emotions, I think that will start happening slowly by itself. Your other Rafa will start showing its face slowly. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Rafa. It's very, very good for everybody to hear that. So we all have that in different ways. And we will meet next Friday.
Yeah.
I think I solved my connection problem, so I should be there. If anything happens, of course, I'll let you know through the Telegram group. It was lovely to be with you today again. Yeah, if you want to share something in private, send me a message. You know where to find me. And otherwise, I'll see you next Friday. Yeah. Kisses and hugs.
Thank you, Sasha.
Yeah, namaste to everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.